Hi, my name's Russ Gonring. Have you ever wondered why some organizations are just so much more productive than others? Well, David Logan, John King, and Hallie Fisher-Wright did. And in their groundbreaking book, Tribal Leadership, they explored the fact that organizational culture was the primary determinant in organizational effectiveness. Now, by organizational culture, I mean values, vision, norms, beliefs, and habits that are primarily shared through a shared language and the understanding of that language. But how does a culture move through an organization? That's what I set out to investigate with a agent-based NetLogo model. Let me explain a bit. Tribal culture, on the view of the authors, goes through or encompasses 5 different stages, from 1 to 5. Now, primarily, most organizations in the United States, and certainly all healthcare organizations, all professional organizations, or most all of them, are locked at a stage 3 culture. The importance of moving from stage 3 to stage 4 is that there's a nonlinear jump in productivity going between these stages. I set this model up using a hypothetical organization consisting of 2 executives at stage 3, one at stage 3, one at stage 2, 4 managers, 2 at stage 3, 2 at stage 2, and 25 workers, 3 of those at stage 3 and 22 at stage 2. Now, I also built in a modifier for the economy, which we will leave at 0 for the present time, as well as a tuner that I have used to capture all of the remaining variables that may go into the spread of the culture through the organization that I have not yet been able to determine. And through trial and error, this tuner is set at this value. My presenting bias was that in the interaction between the various agents, there would be an effect both of the culture of each agent as well as their position within the hierarchy of the organization. The RM1 and the RM2 are modifiers that give a weight to an individual that is at a higher position in the hierarchy. So let's set this up at baseline measurements and run it and see what we get. This will run for a total of 100 ticks. We'll come back at the end to see where we ended up. Well, this is a very fairly characteristic ending with the culture going past just into a low stage 3 culture. We see these tracings here, the number of agents that are at stage 2 in the black, stage 3 in the red, and stage 4 in the green. A number of agents have spontaneously boiled up into stage 4, but they have died off as well. In this model, there is a stochastic representation of both education, which will advance culture, as well as disenchantment, which will diminish it. The interactions between the agents occur when they are in close proximity to each other. That represents a communication in both time and space in which a cultural mean can be shared. Well, let's see what happens when both of the executives start out at stage 4. Will indeed the presumption of a flow from the top down be successful in spreading this cultural mean? So we'll set this up and we'll let it go. And again, we'll rejoin this at the end of 100 ticks. And we can see that there really isn't much difference. And in fact, when we run this dozens of times, we see that only about 15% of the time will the organizational culture rise into a stage 4 culture. Well, let's change things back and see what happens when we make all of the managers a stage 4 culture. See if that makes any difference. And again, we'll come back and join this at the end. We see a completely different picture. Indeed, the culture has risen dramatically. We've had a growth so that the majority of the agents involved in the organization are at stage 4, Most of those at stage 2 have died off. And indeed, we've seen a growth in the organization, primarily with an increase in workers. When we go through and look at this dozens of times, we see, though, that having all of the managers starting off at a stage 4 only results in a spread of the culture through the organization to stage 4 about 50% of the time. And indeed, when we look at a compilation of the results, we can see with the initial condition of one of the managers, we'll get a 5% rise to a stage 4 culture, going all the way up to an 80% probability of a rise to a stage 4 culture when both of the executives, all of the managers, and 8 of the workers are starting out at a stage 4 culture. So what does this mean? Well, this agent-based model shows that even with a bias towards the effectiveness of the spread of a cultural meme from the top down, that is not indeed what happens. The most sure way of spreading culture through an organization is when all of the levels in the organizational hierarchy are involved. Thank you for your attention.